before I start, good morning to everyone. Thanks for joining in. Before I proceed into is it? Am I audible now, people? Hello.
Yeah, hi. I can hear you. I hope the others.
Hello.
Yes. Yeah, audible.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Good morning.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Sorry for these
The audio is not very good.
glitches nowadays we are facing it.
The audio is not very good. Now it's better. The audio.
Oh, okay.
Now it's better.
Yeah, you can continue. I think it's better now.
Now it's better?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah, great. Okay. Just wanted to have a quick conversation with you all. Can you make frog sound, all of you? Just croak yourself, unmute yourself first, and then make some sound so that we can listen in how human can produce sound. Okay. Nice. Nice attempt, Vivek. Come on, more sound.
Your audio is a bit like a frog sound actually. So
Thanks, Ajit. Thanks for that compliment for today.
Because it's becoming bad.
Not on any other day. So, yes. Now
it's better.
Any
Now it's better.
other sound? Yeah. Trr, water, ribbit. Any other sound? I want to listen to more. I want to listen to more sound.
Rebecca.
Very nice. Come on, more sound. Okay, if you are done with that, this is what we are able to do. But frogs are much better, much louder, and they can go on for entire night when they croak. So my talk is basically on that, and we also try to figure out whether it's just sound that the frogs produce or they will do something else also. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen now, and there will be a bit of lag phase between my screen sharing of screen and playing of videos. So what I will do is I will not talk so fast kind of thing. We'll go slowly and then probably able to interact in a much better way. Okay, let me share the screen first. So I'm opening my application window and sharing it, and I hope you are all able to see the window, shared window.
Yes.
Right, great. So so let us start with listening to the frog sound. Right, that's one kind of sound that we'll be able to hear among so many frog sounds that comes from Western Ghats. And if you look into the whole world, there are over 7,000 different species of frogs and toads. So today we'll start with this particular species. And when you see a frog croaking, what you will see is that it has a bulged portion over there, which is called vocal sac, right? And you might have also seen that that particular vocal sac was going back and forth, right? And you are able to hear a particular kind of sound, which is which none of you were able to produce at that point in time, and in the morning when I asked you, right? So just to give you an overview, what happens is that that particular frog is a male individual. That means it's not a female, it's a male. and it is trying to produce sound. Sound is a signal over there, and then within few minutes or few hours, there is another frog that appears, which is a female, and she's a receiver of that particular sound. And then you can see that the frog is croaking in this particular image. You can see that the croaking male is down below and the listener is up above there. And after a while, the signal being received by the female, and then she says, okay, I accept you, and that is where the amplex, and this is called amplexes, where male sits on the female, and they are now going to lay a lot number of eggs, and they want to have their own family. So in general, when the frog croaks, the whole idea is that the signal is being produced, and there is a receiver who receives it, and there is an outcome. Whether the female is ready to accept this male or not, whether the female has readily agreed to it or not, it all depends on the multiple issues related with the signal. It is also related with the signal producer. Okay, we'll not complicate all this stuff today. We'll just try to figure out what all is happening in terms of sound and how the female receives it and what happens later on. And is that sound only a sound, or something else is also associated with that? So just to give an example, at the end of that production of sound of ting, 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 the female got a male frog, and this is how they amplected. And that particular species is called Coorg yellow bushfrog. So I was doing this particular observation on frog behaviors, and this was way back in 2004. I was in the Sharavati Wildlife Sanctuary. There is a backwater called Mupane, and these are all the areas which are inside the Karnataka. And for my astonishment, on that particular day, after seeing this amplexus, I tried imitating the call. So what I did was I produced a sound, something like this. You are now going to listen to the sound that I am producing as a frog. So I said, ting, 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 ting. And then I stopped myself. I was not seriously doing anything. I was just trying to imitate. And suddenly I got a response call like ting, 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 ting. And I said, like as scientists, what we do is that we will not believe in just one kind of, it can be a chance factor. So what I did was I then repeated it. I said, ting, 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 and then passed. And there was a repeat call, like how you hear barbet calls in the morning, early morning. It's this similar kind of response call I was also getting. Then I thought, okay, this is not a chance factor. There is some response I am getting. So what I did was I lowered my height. I just went almost 2 feet onto the ground, just above the ground, 2 feet above the ground, and started croaking or making sound of a frog. And the frog also started, the responding male also moved down. So I heightened myself now. I took a bit of elevated area and then tried to produce this call, and frog also started going up. In the meantime, frog was not just going up and down, he was also moving closer and closer to me, where I'm producing that sound. So eventually, at about 45 minutes of my frog sound reproduction kind of thing, or repeating the call, I am seeing that the frog was just right next to me, within 70 or something like 80 centimeters from me. And the final time when I said ting, 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 this frog actually landed on my throat. So then I felt, what actually happened? Is it just that the male is trying to respond, or is that the female trying to respond? It is not a female, because in frog world, females never, majority of the female frogs never produce sound, but males actually produce sound. So the one which was responding is not a female at all, it was a male. So when finally he landed on my throat, it was very clear to me that it is not just that the sound production is only meant for female. There are sound production where they will actually fight with each other, and probably the male thought that there is another potential male in the area, and he wanted to choke my throat. To substantiate what I am telling, we will watch the next video over here, which actually talks about the male-male combat. So when there are two males very close to each other and when they croak, so there is a possibility that the sound they actually want to subside by choking each other's throat. You can see here there's a combat that's happening. And perhaps when I croaked, like ting, 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 the male thought there's another potential male in the same area, and that's why he wanted to come and choke my throat. Apparently, nothing happened. I left the frog back onto the tree, and we parted our ways. Why I brought this particular issue over here is that many times we generalize ourselves that when we hear a frog croak, it's just meant for a mate. And in certain instances, it's not just for mate, it's also for their potential territorial behavior. We will move on. We'll move on in listening to a couple more frog species so that we'll be able to figure out the differences in frog calls. As the name suggests, it's called Glandular Bushfrog. And again, you can actually make out the difference in the call from the previous species to this species. The earlier one was called Coorgella frog, and this is called Glandular Bushfrog. What apparently you also need to figure out or need to observe in this presentation is that the kind of vocal sac that you are observing. Some will have very tiny vocal sac, some will have very large vocal sac. And again, sound is not just the sound. It also now becomes a part of visual cue, how the frog is trying to communicate, in the sense whether it's a large sac that they are trying to produce, whether it is a small sac with which they are trying to show off. And the recent studies also say that there are minute glands on the throat which also releases pheromones for the mates. So the potential mate, the female, why she may not be croaking back is because she will be getting all these cues from a potential partner to figure out who suits her well. And perhaps that is the energy she is expending to figure out who is the potential mate. That's why she may not be croaking, but she is carefully listening to the signals that is being sent by the males. We'll also see a couple more species, and this is Cheshire Bushfrog. The sound is very feeble. It's like right. That was Cheshire Bushfrog. Again, you are able to figure out the difference between the three frogs now. And then we have one of the smallest frogs, bushfrogs from Western Ghats. This species is called Bombay Bushfrog. The sound that I was talking about now takes a different shape here, in the sense sound will not now only remain as sound. Sound also becomes part of the bigger complex communication signal that the frogs are trying to send across. Okay, we will see this video and then so what do you think? What is happening over here? Any idea? Anybody who wants to unmute and speak, you are most welcome.
Outside the bamboo.
Yes, you are absolutely right. So the frog is actually inside the bamboo, and there are multiple theories now which is talking about why the frog is inside the bamboo. And one of the key thing is that let the frog complete its call, then I will speak. Okay. So what was happening here is that there's a, as somebody explained, there's a frog which has gone inside. Now frogs don't have any appendages to make a hole inside this bamboo to get inside. So what happens is that there is probably some rodents like squirrels or dormouse kind of stuff. They might have opened because they want to have some kind of alkaloids, and they might have opened this. And you can also see the marking of the teeth over there. And then that made a cavity inside the bamboo, and the frog actually goes inside and produces sound. So now it's obvious that the frog, if it is outside and croaking, may not be as good as when it is inside the bamboo and croaking. So let us just see that particular video where the reed bamboo frog is actually croaking from outside. And this is that particular species. Again, this is what we were able to describe in the year 2007 as Aucklander reed bushfrog. Again, if you can look into its eyes, color pattern and all, it's fantastic. And again, the theory now comes is that why so much of pattern is on the frog. Let us listen to the frog now. It's going to croak. Yeah, that's the call when frog is outside the bamboo. So now you can connect the dot over here. So frog used the bamboo to resonate its sound much better, in the sense it is now able to send its sound much far off distances than when it is outside and trying to croak. So the frog is capable of making use of these kind of available habitats, available spaces, and that is where they make, like if you have heard about the baffles that they do in the leaves, how cricket make use of it so that the sound gets amplified. Now, perhaps the Aucklander reed bushfrog is also trying to do the same by sitting inside the bamboo and trying to croak. And when the potential partner listens to that sound, she is capable of figuring out where this individual is, and then they go inside, put the eggs there, and then they will have their family next. Okay, so these are a couple of things I just wanted to mention. We will move forward and then think about how the sounds are produced in frogs. Many of you who have listened to frogs will not produce like how I am talking, in the sense it's not like I take a break in the middle, take a breath, and then speak. Frogs, what they do is they take the air inside, then they block their nostrils, they block their mouth so that air doesn't escape. Air actually goes into the lungs, and when they push the lungs down, what happens is the air is being pushed out of their larynx, and it vibrates the vocal cords, and they produce the sound, and the air goes into the chamber called vocal sac. And then when the vocal sac deflates, the air is pushed back and it goes into the lung. So by this way, the frogs are capable of producing sounds throughout the night, because air doesn't get escape, it gets trapped inside the body. So they are just making sound back and forth, and that's why they were able to produce sound throughout the night in the starting of monsoon, if you have heard about it. Whereas us, when we speak, what happens is we open our mouth, air gets expelled. So we need, like, even the best of the best effort, you can't, I think you cannot hold beyond 40 seconds of your air when you're talking. Then you need to take air inside, and then you have to speak. Whereas in frogs, it doesn't happen in that manner, so it gets trapped, and that's why they are capable of producing sounds throughout the night. Now, based on this capability of producing sound for a long time, based on the quality of the sound they produce, female then will decide, okay, this particular guy has a lot of muscle power, he is strong enough, he's croaking for the entire night, and okay, that must be my potential partner. So that's how a female recognizes a mate. If we are trying to say that it's based only on the vocal quality. But again, vocal quality varies. The stronger male will produce better call qualities and long durations, and they will have robust body, and that's what also get reflected when the mate female chooses him. Let's listen to a couple other species which are no more on the tree, but they are on the ground. And one of them very common frog. This common frog is also available in Bangalore, right? You can see, you can actually make out now that the frog is pushing the air from the lungs and is getting here into the vocal sac, and when it deflates, it is going back into the lungs, right? We can move on a bit. Oh, oh, it is here. Oh, it's okay. We'll move on to the next one. And this is a common toad. Again, this particular sound also you might have heard quite often with the onset of monsoon. And if your home is like a lake view apartment kind of stuff, you will definitely hear these sounds throughout the night. Right, again, what you can see here is that there's a bulged vocal sac, but on that there are some yellow colors, and also the body of the toad is turning yellow. I will come to that in a bit. We'll also see another toad and then move on to it. And this is another toad, which is called Ferguson's toad, and one of the commonest of the toads that is available in the Deccan Plateau. And look at the way it is producing, and also try to observe certain elements on the vocal sac. There is a yellowness on the throat, there is a blue shine on the throat. Okay, so now we are moving from acoustics, like the sound that the frog or toad produces, not just the sound, it also have color codes. Okay, so it's called visual communication. I will come to that in a couple of slides. We'll try to see a few more, and then probably we'll be able to. I hope the videos are all visible to you people. If there is any problem, you just let me know. Okay.
It's clear.
Okay. Right. So that was Malabar tree toad. Again, one of the toad which is capable of climbing onto the trees. We had. Oh, okay. There's some issue over here. Let me see whether I can play it. Okay. No problem. Don't worry. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. So there's one particular video I would like to show before we proceed. Is the slide visible?
It's not moving. I mean, we can hear it, but it's not.
Sorry?
We can hear it.
Oh, just a minute.
Yeah, we can't see any movement.
Can you see it now?
Yes. We can see
Okay,
it.
perfect. So this particular species is called Indian bullfrog. Now, so far you have heard sound and how potential mate chooses. Now there is a visual element added to the sound here, and this particular species, along with common Indian toad, they turn yellow during the breeding period. So if you carefully observe here, so there are two male individuals, and this kind of croaking is called chorus calling. Right. So what is happening over here is that apart from producing sound, the frog is also trying to give a visual signaling over here. In the sense, the frog is trying, like this particular frog is trying to say that we are all yellow in color, and we are chorusing, and then it's a kind of communication that they are trying to produce or send towards the female. And do you know what perhaps is the reason for these kind of color coding? One of the key example, even though it is a very wrong analogy to give, is that if you have ever seen the Academy Award functions, the Oscar Award functions, you can see that all the males are coming in tuxedos, right? It's a black trouser and bow tie, black and black, right? So, but female can wear any color, any kind of clothing. So the whole idea is that all males will appear in a similar manner. In the sense, a male who is croaking here need not have to send or spend energy in figuring out whether the other individual next to him is a female or a male. If he sees the yellow color, he can straight away say that this is a male. I need not have to really worry about him. The only thing is that he has to maintain the territory, and that is why if you have carefully observed, there was a headbutt that has happened with the other individual. Otherwise, the color coding is that all the yellow ones are all male, so there is no need to mount on each other. When there is a brown colored individual that appears, you go and mate with that. So in essence, all the males are visually coding themselves, saying that we are all males, we need not have to look at each other. But if there is a brown colored one, we have to then see and focus on her, right? It is also, and there is another reason for why they do it, is that in the frog world, the sex ratio is very skewed, right? It's 10 males and 1 female. So they have to do many of these complex iteration of communication, like visual communication, like whether it's just with the sound or with bringing colors. They have to do combination of it so that they impress on that female, because there are 9 more to impress the same individual. So female then decides based on all these 10 or 20 individuals who are croaking over there. In many times she's also she might get confused, but and then many of them will have a chance to mate with her. But majority of the cases, female will decide on who is the potential mate with whom she is going to mate with. But males, when they bring an yellow color on them, it is visual communication among the males, not to mount on each other. They are supposed to now mount on the brown colored ones. That will be the female. This apparently has been reported in European frog called Moore's frog. If you see that, it's for 5 days. A brown colored male will turn into blue colored ones, and then they once again go back into the brown color. So in that blue colored period, they all congregate around the lake, and then they mate with the brown colored individuals, which will generally be a female. Okay. So my final segment of the talk for today is this frog, which not only croaks, not only communicates visually, it also does a bit of add-on called dancing, right? So let's just see what happens. That's the croaking short. That's the foot flagging behavior, right? Apparently, we gave a name called dancing for this kind of flagging behavior, and in addition to that, the females actually dances on egg flags. I will come to that later. So if you observe here, the frog not only croaked, he also actually extended its hind limb. So initially, again, when we started working on it, we thought this could be something else to actually look at. I think I will not be able to play this video. Oh, good. That is great. Wonderful. So if you observe here, there are 2 individuals. There are 2 individual males. This is a male who has actually started the foot flagging, and there is another male who responded with foot flagging. Now they are onto the same plane. They kicked each other. They are moving parallelly to each other, croaking, and now they lift their hind limbs. They kick each other. They lift their hind limbs. You can see that. Right. So far when I spoke about croaking, I was trying to say that croaking is to impress the female. And initially, when I also thought that this is to impress the female and they are actually fighting, but all my thought process changed. And when we did the experiment with my Australia, what we were able to figure out that it was, I'm not going to go through all this stuff. What I want to just communicate to you people is that the male, when he foot flagged, we'll go back to this. When the male foot flagged and croaking, it is communicating to another male that this particular rock is his own territory, and that the other male should not come close to him. And if he come close, he is going to kick. So he is trying to visually communicate and say that this is my territory, don't come near. Like how many of us protest with the placards and saying that, oh, don't do this or do this kind of thing. So this particular dancing frog is trying to communicate with another male individual saying that this is my territory, don't come near. And if you come near, I'm going to kick you. So frog communication is that it is not necessarily only to attract mate. In many cases, it's also visual communication. In other sense, in sometimes they are also for maintaining the territory. And perhaps I will end my talk there because I would like to listen to people and participants what they have in their mind. Before ending my talk here, I will just show a couple more why we called it as dancing frog. See, once the we also don't know in dancing frogs how female chooses a male. Our experiment is still on. We were unable to figure out whether the one who held his area or territory, did he get the female? We have no clue of that. We are doing the experiment on it. But what happens once the female gets a male is that she goes into small stream, and she actually creates a cavity in the stream. You can see that there's a male on the top and the female. She removes gravels and small stones in the stream, and then she lays eggs inside that, and then the male departs, and finally the female actually dances over that clutch of eggs. Can you see that? And she covers up that entire egg clutch. And for this entire behavior of dancing in male as well as in female, or movement of hind limb in male and female, we called it as dancing frog. Otherwise, just for stretching the foot, you can't call it as dancing. We try to add all these elements, and then that's why we call dancing. Now, again, so if you look at the way the frogs are croaking, the way they are communicating, the way they are sending the signals, so it is not now. It is not necessary to think that frogs are only there to croak and attract the potential mate. The croaking is having more information to communicate. It can be visual, it can be with the chemical, it can be with the bulging of the vocal sac. There are a lot of information hidden over there, and that is what the frogs are trying to communicate with their other potential other males or with their potential partners. So with that, I will end my talk here. I will take last couple of slides once we finish our interactions. Yeah, it's open for interactions.
Great. So I wanted to actually ask you the questions that have come up. And I think Ambali has a question that she was asking about, the way that people sorry, not people, how frogs are constantly expelling, and are they expelling the same air throughout the night, and how are they breathing, if they are constantly keeping the same air inside themselves?
Yeah, that's a great question, Billy. Frogs actually breathe like us. They breathe through the lungs. So when they send a sound process, let us say they have done it for 15-20 minutes, and then they need a kind of break, right? So at that point in time, they can breathe through the lungs. Or if they there's also breathing that happens on the skin surface of the frogs. So there's an exchange of gas that happens on the surface of the skin of frogs. So there are two ways in which they do, but it is not necessary that they will like breathe out and entire night they will only croak and then they die off because there's no air to breathe. So they will also break in between to take breath, and then they continue with their croaking.
Okay, and I think that's related to the next question also, because someone
Yes, yes,
asked,
yes, yes.
So I'll skip that, and I'll probably ask Arpita to unmute and ask the questions, because there are two of them. So Arpita, please go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah, Arpita, go ahead.
Sir, actually, I wanted to ask, does the female possess the power of selecting the sex of its offsprings? Or it's like external things like temperature or something like that?
I have no clue in that sense of whether the female is able to determine the sex. But looking at the evolutionary process, we now know that there is a temperature-dependent sexual determination that happens in reptiles, and frogs are actually a predecessor to reptiles in the sense they are in the evolutionary time scale. Frogs have come first, and then the reptiles have come.
Yes.
So if something is available in reptiles, then it must be available in the frogs too. So if somebody takes this research forward and try to figure it out, then probably there's a chance that even frogs also have temperature-dependent sexual determination. But I really don't know whether female possess that power of selecting the sex of its offspring. I have no clue about that, but it will be a great question to work on.
Yeah, you talked about the sex ratio, like
Yes.
it's very
Very skewed. Yes.
And yeah. So why? So I asked, so like, why is that? I mean, what might be the reason? Is there any?
Very good question, but I have no clue. One of the reason perhaps is that female are the ones in the frog world where they lay copious amount of eggs, in the sense, and the egg number also varies. But in general, if you look at large size frogs and all, there will be thousands of eggs being laid.
Okay.
So perhaps if all the laid eggs turn out to be 50 female and 50 male, you can see that how many more of that is going to happen. So probably in order to check that population explosion, the sex ratio is perhaps very, very skewed.
Okay.
But in compensating for that, I think the females are laying large number of eggs, so that the population still remains intact.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Vivek, you want to go ahead and ask your question? Or I can just read it out.
Hi, sir. My name is Anushka Pranapi, and my question is, so if the female frog cannot croak, then how does it communicate to the males surrounding her that this is my choice? How does she state her choice among them?
Fantastic, Vivek. Sorry, I think I'm looking at your screen and saying that it's Vivek. I forgot your name. So what does female do is that, she slowly moves towards the male with whom she says she wants to mate with, and it is done silently. But having said that, there are at least 3 or 4 species in India. There is something called reciprocal calls, in the sense, when the potential male she recognizes, she calls him back, saying called, I am reciprocating and accepting you as my mate. And that happens in couple of species. For example, the bicolored frog, I think in skittering frogs, this happens, and the female actually reciprocates and accepts him with a milder call. It is not as same as that of the male call, but it's an acceptance call kind of. Having said that, the majority, it is a silent acceptance where female actually goes towards the male and allows him to mount on her. And if there is another male whom she doesn't accept and trying to mount, she actually dislodges him. She will just say, just get lost from this place, kind of.
Thanks, Anushka. Do you have any other questions?
No, thank you, sir. That was a very detailed explanation. Thank you.
Okay, so we have one more question from Pallavi, and then I'll ask you my questions. Pallavi, you
Sure,
want
sure.
to unmute and ask?
Yeah, thank you. It was a wonderful presentation. My question is, how are the different types of sounds produced, although the mechanism seems to be similar in all the species? But
Yes.
sound, like there is a variety in the sound.
Absolutely, absolutely. Wonderful, Pallavi. Yeah, so, uh, I try to give this analogy, but this is a very vague and it's very odd looking analogy also. Even if among humans, we are one species, and when we all, each of us speak, right? And I also take names, for example, when a Mallu speaks certain things, when a Maharashtrian speaks certain things, when a Kannadiga speaks certain words, you can figure out how we speak differently, even though we all speak with our larynx, right? So our vocal cord also vibrates and produces. Uh, in similar way, in the frog world, which is again diverse, what happens is that the smaller sized individuals have smaller vocal cards, that is tinier vocal cards. So when the vocal card is tinier, then the frequency is higher. So this is what we have seen in physics classes also. When the ropes are very short, when you vibrate the rope, it is vibrating at a quicker time. So that means they have higher frequencies. When the rope is longer, when you vibrate it, the frequency is lower, right? So that itself produces difference in sound. And how each individual produces, again, based on the vocal sac size, based on whether they have single vocal sac, whether they have two vocal sac, how they push the air through their muscle fibers, these all determines the differences in sound. So the tiniest ones have the highest pitch in frogs. The larger ones have the lowest frequencies of calls. For example, if a bullfrog is croaking, the vocal cords are very strong and long, so that the sound is like oh, 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 kind of stuff. Whereas a tiny little one like the Bombay Bushfrog, which is probably less than half an inch kind of thing, so they will produce like ting 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 ting. So you can see that the tiny vocal cord will be vibrating much quicker, and that's why the high frequency sound emerges. And that itself has led to a lot of variation in sound calls. In addition to that, sound can also be produced in taking like repeating number of notes. In birds, it is very complex. The vocabulary is much larger. Whereas in frog world, it's a repetition of the same sound that makes the difference in call quality or difference in calls.
Okay, thank
I hope
you.
I understand.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Thank you, thank you.
Thanks, Pallavi. Yeah.
Thanks, Pallavi. So I have two questions, and the first is about, you mentioned that there is a color variation on their, while they are croaking, the bulge has different colors, right? So I
Yeah.
was wondering, in the dark, is it possible for other frogs to see that, or is it only something that is communicated during the daytime?
Right. So again, the frog which I showed, yellow and cobalt blue vocals, are the Indian bullfrog that I showed. They're
Yes.
actually diurnal species in the sense that when they croak, it was broad day kind of stuff.
Okay.
Just previous to monsoon, with the first showers and all, they start croaking, and that is where they communicate visually. In addition to that, in the foot flagging frogs, not again, foot flagging is also a diurnal process in the sense it happens during the day. But there are other species of frogs which does this foot flagging during the night hours. So that means the frog is able to communicate during the night also. And it is already based on the evidence that frogs' eyes are capable of seeing in the night, darkest of the night. So they can actually see where they have to jump onto a tree, what particular leaf they have to land when they jump. So in a way, these signals when they produce, whether it is foot flagging or shaking of a branch, these kind of thing. So frogs are capable of seeing in the dark also. So their eyes have a lot of rods, and that's why they can see more during the night. Yeah. So some of the communication, not necessarily those two which I have shown, they are diurnal species. Apart from that, there are species which are having the coloration, doing certain waving of hands or legs that is being seen in the dark. by the potential mate.
Oh,
Yeah.
Great. Thank you for answering that. And I have one more question, which might be kind of odd, but as you mentioned, when the frogs sort of warn each other with their leg extensions or their dancing movement, as you called it, is that sufficient to dissuade other frogs? I mean, if it's a prime location, for instance, or territory, is that sufficient, or do they kind of have to kick them once or twice?
So in fact, what is being observed is that it's called multimodal signaling is what we were able to see, because frog actually starts with croaking, and it's a diurnal species. When they start with croaking, and then once they start croaking, there are not just one or two individuals, there are multiple individuals who will start croaking at the same time. So it's a kind of chorus that happens. So at that point in time, I think they want to establish their territory. That's why they start tapping, like they tap their thighs onto the rock, and then they say, okay, this is my place. Guys, please don't come near at all. And in couple of instances, we have not seen individuals coming and actually doing any kicking kind of stuff. It's just foot flagging, and that's it. That's it for the day. So no other individuals coming over there. Perhaps this is a kind of signaling they send it across when they listen to many more male individuals calling from that area. And actual kicking happened only when they are too close to each other and the one wanted to occupy the place of the other. Otherwise, kicking doesn't happen always when they show foot flagging behavior, right?
Okay.
So and this research is still being continued, because we really wanted to figure out whether one of the flagging frog from one particular stone, if you take him and leave it into another stone, whether he will still be saying that whether he will change his stone or he wants to go back to the previous stone where he was croaking from. All these things are still research is still underway.
Okay, great. Thank you. And while you answering my questions, we've got a few more. So I'm
Yeah.
just going to quickly read them out. So Anushka asks, can the croaks of a particular species be interpreted by other species? So can they communicate across species because they will be in the same territory?
Yeah, wonderful question. So far, our understanding is that when the frog calls are very species specific. So if a particular species is croaking, that means it's only croaking for the species, or the receiver will have his tympanum or the eardrum tuned only for that particular species. And this question is actually leading nowadays into much higher conservation issue, because in urban areas, because of the urban noise, they say that the frogs are actually hiring their pitch and then they're croaking. So what happens is that when a frog of a particular species changes its tonal quality and starts croaking at higher pitch, the female, her receiver or the tympanum is not tuned for higher pitch receiving of that sound. So what generally happens is that male is ignored, right? Are you getting the point over here?
Yeah.
So since the antenna is not tuned for a particular sound, so they may not have a mating at all.
Okay.
I hope you are getting the point over here. So
Yeah.
many times it's species specific. The sound is very species specific, and also it has a relevance to its frequency and the duration of call and all those parameters associated with the sound. And there is majority of the cases there is no possibility of like crisscross or mismatch of the calls and saying that okay, I am a particular sounding species, you need not have to come over here. That signal has not been reported from frogs. Having said that, there is actually a niche partitioning of sounds, because particular species croaks at, let us say, 6 o'clock in the evening, then they stop after, let us say, 6:30, and then the other kind of species takes over and they croak, and then 7 o'clock some other species. So there is a kind of niche partitioning that happens in the time as well as space. For example, ground dwelling species will croak in a different way to that of a tree dwelling species, to that of a canopy dwelling, to that of a water dwelling species. So there are a lot of partitioning that happens with the sound, and also it is very species specific, if I can put it in that way. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Anushka. I think you raised an interesting question, and I hope you got the answer you needed. There's two more questions. Frogs which exhibit territorial behavior. I think you've already described them, but are there other vocal calls
Sorry, I couldn't get the question properly.
specifically for So it says frogs which exhibit territorial behavior. Do they use a variety of vocal calls to defend their boundaries?
No, no,
No.
it's the same
It's
vocal.
same.
Like as of now, what we have seen is the same vocal call. Yeah.
Okay, great. And there's a question from someone who asks about the survival of eggs. What is the probability of their survival, and what happens to some eggs that might not survive?
Yeah. So, for example, large species like the bullfrog or common toad, which lay thousands of eggs, the survival rate is like perhaps it's about 5%, right? For thousands of eggs, probably 50 individuals remain. Whereas, having said that, if you look at some of the species which are direct developing, like the bushfrogs, where they lay probably 20 to some 40 eggs, uh, what happens is all the 40 eggs hatch out into tiny individuals, and none of them are killed, right? So there is a lot of skew even in figuring out what actually happens, how much energy is spent on caring of eggs, or how many individuals actually come out, why some species lay large amount of eggs and have higher mortality compared to some of the species which lay less number of eggs and have no mortality at all. I think that's a fabulous space to work in India, because as of now, if I count numbers, perhaps we land up around 20 to 30 species of which we know this is how many eggs they are laid, this is how much they survive, this is how much or what happens to it, kind of thing. Because many of the research so far has focused only on describing species. We have not gone beyond describing and looking at what is the behavior or what is the ecology of a species, or how they mate, what habitat they require, kind of stuff. Perhaps in next 10 to 15 years, I think Indian focus will be on looking at these kind of fecundity, fertility issues or habitat related issues, kind of. But as of now, this is what the answer I have for Indian species.
Okay, thank you. And
Yeah.
I'll take one last question for right now. It's about is there mimicry in frogs?
Wonderful questions. I have no answer for that. But I know, I think I forgot her name. She was working in a tree. There is a bird which actually mimics the frog call. The drongo mimics the frog call, but I have not seen any frog mimicking any other species or any of their own frogs. Or probably we have not looked into, if I can say it in that way.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for answering all these questions. And I think you're going to get a lot more. But I think you can go back to your presentation and maybe
Yeah.
answer one last question while you wrap up
Yeah.
about how can how can a person find the sort of scientific resources about frogs and sort of start frog watching, as you might call it.
Yes, yes. So there's a good network in India. We have on India Biodiversity portal, there is something called Frog Watch, and also this network is very small as of now. I think perhaps if you count all the people who are working on amphibians of India, the number will be less than 20-25. Like in the sense, serious researchers putting like 10-15 years into the research and trying to communicate with people to make it available to people, even to the layman, kind of thing. Other thing is, like, you have the social medias where you can post. There are web pages like India Biodiversity portal. You can take pictures and post it, and there are people who will respond to it saying that, okay, this is what the species is, or this is not the species which is. So that is how you have to start. And I think many times it is passion driven, and once you are into it, and then you will start realizing that there are resources available here. There are now ResearchGates and all those things where people start keeping the reference material. So you can go through, figure out a question, and then you can start working. So there is no stop nowadays compared to like 25 years ago. When you want to get a research paper, you need to write to that person, send a formal snail mail, and then he will respond back to you whether they will get a research paper or not. So but now if you see with the advancement of technology and all and social media, I think you have potential. Only thing is you have to go out and start doing it. And you can't say that, okay, can I have all the things equipped and then I go and start doing it? I think that will be too late to do. You just jump in, start doing it, make mistakes, learn in a wrong way, and then start changing yourself. Probably perhaps you will build yourself in a much better way. Okay, so my final slide is this. I think I have shared it. It's called Frog and Urban Noise. I will just play this sound so that you will understand what I am talking about. Right. So the frogs are croaking. There is a aeroplane that landed, and you have heard that there's a ballast sound that has come over, and it actually masks the sound of the frogs over there. There's a research that has happened in New Zealand where they say that a lot of urban noise, and I think I have mentioned earlier also, is changing the tonal quality of the frog, and that's why the female is unable to mate with the potential proper male individual, and probably they are mating with the tinier individuals, and their populations are just wiping out because nothing happens when they mate with a smaller individual which doesn't have a proper eggs or spawning that is happening in the future. So we need to think about these stuff too when we are in certain spaces like urban areas, how much sound we do, what kind of changes that we are bringing into our water bodies next to our homes, whether we still have some potential areas where frogs can come and breed. We need to have a real relook into our interaction with frogs. And perhaps I will say that conservation of all these frogs are in your hands, and this is what I just brought in earlier. You have India Biodiversity Portal where you can post any photos from your phone or even sound records that you can post, and there are people who will look into it and say this is what the species is, right? So enjoy looking at frogs. Next time when you hear them croaking, don't just say that they are croaking for their mate. They can be signaling to you to go out and watch them and list them and post it in India Biodiversity Portal. So thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. It was wonderful.
Thank you so much. And I would just like to add, a few points. So I think all of us have learned a lot about frogs, and I would really recommend checking out the portal. The link is in the chat box and on YouTube. And please do visit it if you would like to learn more and to participate in the community discussions on frogs. Thank you so much for this talk, Dr. Gururaja. I think we've all really enjoyed it, and I'm sure lots of people are going to go back and watch it later on. I would especially like to thank Professor Saudamani for initiating the OutsideIn series, and Dr. Benjamin Franklin suggested that you give this talk, so we're also grateful to him. And
thank you.
Lastly, thank you to the audience for joining us. And we are taking a break next week, but we'll be back on the 31st for the talk by by Professor Biju Kumar from Kerala University, and he's going to be talking about oceans and the future and how we depend on oceans and how they shape our lives and the planet. So please do join us. If you've registered for the session today, you will be notified on that day as well. But if you're watching on YouTube, then please make sure to join us on 31st at 11 a.m. Thank you, everybody. Have a great Sunday.
Thank you. Thanks, Pavitra. Thanks for hosting. Thanks, Saudamani and Benjamin.